Well, if you're looking at the title, you're probably asking, who is Jack Denhoff?
He was the nicest man on earth. And he treated everybody equally. Never, it doesn't matter who you were, what you were like, everybody was equal. And you never saw that man with a frown on his face. He always was smiling, no matter how bad of a day it was.
I would say that he will always be an upstanding individual, a very smart man, someone who was willing and able to try anything to make life better for himself, his family, and others around him.
To get the story going, Jack Edward Denhoff was born to Edward Denhoff and Mabel Goodrich Denhoff in Canisteo, New York on February 7th, 1936. To start out, in his first 8 or 9 years of life, things weren't very easy for young Jack. His father was quite the womanizer and alcoholic, and so eventually his father left around age 8 or 9. And for young Jack, it had to have been hard, though he never told any of us, his family, how he really felt about that ordeal. It had to have been hard not having a father type of figure in his life. And, back in those days, it was very different in that, as far as seeing his father, if he saw his father getting close at all, whether his father knew he was there or not, and he was walking down the same side of the street, my grandfather would have to cross to the other side of the street so as not to come into close contact with his father. So that was hard. And also because his father was not there from an early age, he had to become the man of the house because his 3 sisters, Dorothy, Eloise, and Maxine, they were all grown up enough to where they could be independent, and so he was from an early age providing for the family, and consequently he had to go to work at a very young age to bring in income. And it wasn't like the sweatshop kid type of stuff that you read in books or see in the movies. It truly was factory work for him, and he had to lie his age a little bit to get some of these different jobs that he had. And so it was very tough. As a kid, you're supposed to be a kid, and he didn't really get the full experience of that. Now, what he did say, as far as fondly remembering his childhood, he would always remember playing baseball with the neighborhood kids and going downtown on Friday nights to watch the boxing matches that would be broadcast every Friday night on TV. So those were the types of things that he would have done as a kid. When he got into high school, though, he really started to find an identity for himself as an athlete, because following his high school years, my grandfather, owing to the fact that, and he was admittedly not the most exemplary student, he was accepted to Mansfield University in Pennsylvania. It was then called Mansfield State Teachers College of Pennsylvania, on a football scholarship. The coach had liked what he saw in my grandfather, and so they gave him a scholarship just based on what he did out on the field. Now, what he did out on the field was always great, but there was one X factor that was to come into play in Mansfield that would both change the way that he looked at his own life and also the way that he went about his education. And for that, I will let that X factor take over for me for a few minutes here.
Can't ask for anything better than that.
When did you meet Gramps?
I met Gramps in college in October 1954. He was on the football team, and he worked in the cafeteria. I worked in the cafeteria, and somehow we met. And then it ended up where he was a biology minor, and we ended up having some classes together. That was kind of cool.
And you broke up with him at some point, right?
At one point, religion was very much a factor in the 50s. I was Catholic, very Catholic, and Jack wasn't sure what he was. And I knew that I didn't want a mixed marriage. My dad and my mom were mixed marriage. And my mom went to church with me and my dad stayed home. So I didn't want that type of life. But as the Lord had us in this plan, one day I looked up at the choir and Jack was sitting up there, and the rest is history.
So it basically was you can live without him. That
Yeah,
led you
we
back to him.
decided that no matter what, we would work it out. But just before we were married, unbeknown to me, he converted to Catholicism. And that was the greatest gift. Never asked him, never would. But he decided love was greater. And he did it for me.
Nobody could ever question the love they had for their family, their
And
grandkids.
each other. I mean,
Yeah.
they.
that's a
Well,
love story and a half.
yeah. I mean, you could always tell that they loved each other.
Well, and that is, I mean, it's the classic American love story, but I would say on steroids because, like, they start dating.
Uh-huh.
She dumps him because he's not Catholic.
Oh, jeez.
Because, like, Like, she had already had a divided family between Russian Orthodox and Catholic. So we're not going down that road. And then realizes she can't live without him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're back together. Gets him to go back to college. Then, I think she said to him or something like that, yeah, I'm getting married August 17th, with or without you, or something like that. Then, rehearsal day, comes to find out he converted for her.
Oh.
Converted to Catholicism for her.
See, now I didn't know that. I didn't know that one.
That right there was
Pure love.
probably... Well, as we kids would say nowadays, oh, yuck. No, I'm just kidding. Just the love between my grandparents was, that was their college years. Nothing else mattered except for their love for one another. They got married on August 17th, 1957. And yes, my grandfather did become a Catholic just before they got married. And yes, that was the greatest gift that any of us have really ever seen out of anyone as an act of love. So, yeah, quite the mushy story there. But not to get too far off topic here. So, they get married, and she convinces him to go back to college to finish everything out. And like her, he becomes a teacher, and they moved to a town about an hour from where both of them originated from. So my grandfather originated from Canisteo, of course, and my grandmother's from Carbondale, Mayfield, Pennsylvania. So that's very interesting as well. And so they moved to Horseheads, New York. So that is near, it's right in the middle between Elmira and Corning, New York. And both of them, my grandmother started a little bit before my grandfather, but they started work for the Horseheads Central School District. My grandmother was a math, science, English. She's a brainiac. She's going to be 90 years old in God knows how many days. And she's still a brainiac. Love her sometimes, love to hate her sometimes for that. Graham, if you're watching this, don't worry. I didn't mean any of that. Mostly. But anyway, so, and my grandfather was the history teacher of the two, and substituting in gym sometimes, but he was the history teacher, so now we know where the beast who's narrating this story kind of comes from. And along with teaching, my grandfather also became the head wrestling coach at Horseheads. And that's a very interesting part of the story because he never cut anyone from his team. And he was an interesting coach in this respect. But another interesting part of how he was as a coach was that he coached a state champion while he also had won a state championship as an athlete. So that's a very interesting part of the story. I'm having trouble explaining just kind of how he was as a coach. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Gary Miller, who was both a student / wrestler of my grandfather, and he actually lives right across the road from where my grandmother still lives to this day. So I'm going to turn it over to Gary for a couple minutes to describe how my grandfather was as coach.
Start rolling.
Baby is so cute. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, isn't he?
He is adorable.
He's like,
He's stolen your grandma's heart.
oh,
That's always good.
he actually, the other night, I was in doing homework and he's just sitting on the bed and he put his hands out, and usually for him that means, oh, okay, high five, whatever. And so I put my hands out and he grabs my hands and he pulls himself right up to his feet,
Oh my god.
and I'm like,
New trick.
I'm like, oh, please don't grow up, man. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Take
Yeah,
your
well.
time.
And my wife, she's like, well, don't tell him that. And I'm like, no, it's really not worth it. It's not worth it. Like, don't grow up too fast. Trust me. I know.
Yes, you do.
Did it myself. And I just know, I know my grandfather would be eating him up.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I know he ate us up, but he'd be really infatuated with this one.
I totally agree.
But speaking of, since I've got my camera rolling, so when did you first meet Gramps?
9th grade, and that would have been 1963. I never had him for a teacher, but I did have your grandmother for science. And Jack was I had Jack for study hall, but of course that didn't mean anything. But, and then I got really connected with the wrestling team.
Oh yeah.
And I would go to, maybe 1 or 2 practices. I wouldn't stay long. And then I would go to all the home meets. And boy, he took it really seriously. I mean, he would go out there and wrestle with these guys.
Oh yeah.
And, he was not a pushy coach, but he was one of those that, okay, we're here to win. Okay, I want everybody involved. And there were people on the team that everybody knew really aren't cut out for wrestling. But, Jack brought them along, showed them all the moves, keep your interest up. And, some of those guys actually got into a few matches. He was one of those guys that said, okay, we're all in this together. We're not going to the Super Bowl, okay? And that was not easy because in wrestling, you are 5 days a week practice, which is right after school. And it's pretty much this time of year, 1 month before Christmas and about 6 weeks after Christmas. So it's the cold weather stuff, and so you get this gym and you're really going, everybody's really active. Then you put your coat on and you dash to your waiting car, whatever.
Oh yeah.
But, it's tough to keep people actively interested in a sport when the weather is strictly indoors.
Yeah. And I know he always said like he would never cut anyone. He always loved to, have everyone involved in practice because like he enjoyed teaching the sport,
Right.
even if you weren't getting into matches and stuff like that, he always told us anyway that he never really, he would always just kind of let everyone be part of it. And
Sure.
he loved being like that at matches too. It was, I think for him, that was probably one of the more fun parts of his career, I would say.
Oh, the best match I ever saw was the Saturday afternoon, and it was probably very early February at our home gym on a Saturday afternoon, and they beat Ithaca, which at that time was a real powerhouse,
Yeah.
and it really was like you won the Super Bowl. Everybody was cranked up for an hour after the match was over because they had to roll up the mats and everybody was really cheering, and all the parents were there.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and it took 45 minutes and nobody left.
That's crazy.
But I mean, you could just tell everybody was going to remember the day that those guys won and beat Ithaca.
Now, just how good was Jack Denhoff as a teacher? Let's hear from Becky Dobson.
I mean, he always had time for his students.
Oh, yeah.
If you needed to stay after class, he was always attentive to that.
Yeah.
Always wanted you to persevere, do well. So he always was good like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't make the teachers like they used to.
No.
The teachers back then, Mr. Denhoff and Mrs. Denhoff, they both were, very caring and loving people. And they showed it to their students every day, And it kind of, brings a little tears to my eyes, because they're just wonderful people.
For Jack Denhoff, the teaching and coaching sectors in his life were absolute successes. I've never heard any student or wrestler of his who has complained all that much about him. Nobody really ever had any issues with him because he never gave anybody a reason to have issues with him. With that being said, outside of school, life was even more wonderful for Jack. And the reason for that is in 1964, he and Anne welcomed their first child, Keith Denhoff, who's named after the wrestler Keith Perdue. And in 1970, they welcomed their second and only other child, Karen, who is the mother of this director. Family life for Jack was the most important thing that he was involved in, from Christmases to being at home and swimming in the pool and having fun running around with the kids. That was always important to him. You'll see in here a picture of one of the Christmases they had when all of them were around my uncle Keith, playing the organ, singing Christmas carols. That was what family life for Jack Denhoff looked like. And, well, you know what? I'm going to let my mother talk to you a little bit about this because I wasn't there yet. So, take it away, Mom.
We loved music. We loved to listen to music. We loved to sing and dance and all that stuff. And he would just plain try to, dance the jig or dance the polka or dance something. And it was fun to watch him because he was a very playful man when he was with his family, more so than anywhere else. He had fun everywhere, but at home he was truly himself and enjoyed life.
Yeah, and the music part of it is very evident because and the one vivid, picture that I always, whenever you explain the love of music in the home, The picture at Christmas of you guys sitting with Uncle Keith, I think you were still very little or whatever, but it was Gramps, Graham, Uncle Keith playing the piano or organ.
Organ.
I couldn't tell if it was a piano or organ because I know he could do both. But
And we had both.
yeah,
But most of the time he played the organ, I played the piano.
I think Grandpa Mosier was in that picture.
And probably my grandma Mosier,
Grandma Mosier. I think Uncle Basil was in
Uncle
that
Basil,
one. Aunt Marilyn.
Aunt Marilyn,
Yep.
and probably Michelle, if I remember,
Yes.
my cousin Michelle.
Yep.
Glenn, I don't believe was quite born yet, or if he was born, he was so little that he was probably on a floor or something
Right.
at that point.
And this part will definitely be in the film, and I'll for you guys at home, I'll make sure that we include that picture right here. Okay. But yeah, that's definitely polka night was sleeping over as kids. We definitely saw polka night, and the Lawrence Welk show they would watch quite a bit when we were kids. I know you guys really did Wonderful World of Disney all the time.
Sunday nights.
Was that always like a family thing that you guys did together, or
A lot of it, but the most I remember of a family night was on Fridays. Friday night was family night, and we would either have like popcorn, homemade ice cream that we all did together, or apples and cheese, and then we would watch the Dukes of Hazzard. So
right?
that was our real family time on Friday evenings, and then my brother and I obviously would go to bed around probably 9:30, 10. We were allowed to stay up later, and so yeah. The most important and most love he had was for his wife, his 2 children, and his 3 grandchildren. That was it. Nothing else mattered. He loved everybody else and liked to be around people, but they were the only people that mattered, and the only people that he cared to accomplish things with, or have fun with, or do things for. As far as his happiness or love for other things, nature, even in his last few years, if he wasn't able to walk out there one way or the other to put his bird feed out for his birds, then it was a very bad day. He loved seeing his animals out in nature, in his backyard, front yard, side yard, wherever. He loved his animals. So.
And it seems like that was his love at all times.
At all
really.
times.
It was just waking up and feeding the birds, and
Yep.
perhaps putting corn out for the deer when DEC is not looking.
Yes, in a sense, but his weren't so that he could go out there and trap them and kill them.
Right.
For him, it was literally
Oh, yeah.
just making sure that they had something to eat, especially in those really tough winter months.
Yeah.
He always had a salt lick out for them, and just made sure that they were healthy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
As the years went by, I'd say Gramps barely lost a step or two. Mom graduated in '88, and Uncle Keith about 6 years before her in '82. And Gramps and my grandmother, they retired in the early '90s from teaching after over 30 years for both of them in the Horsehead Central School District, which for any teacher, that's quite some longevity right there. Um, then, of course, my mother met my father a couple of years later and got married to him in 1997. And in 1998, along I came, with my brother coming 2 years later in 2000, and our sister Megan coming in 2003. Um, actually, the day before my grandfather's birthday in 2003. So that was quite the birthday gift for him. As far as us grandkids, well, I'll show my face for once in this video. So as far as my grandfather went, I think the three of us would say just about the same thing. He was funny as hell. Oh my goodness, you could not have a day with him where he did not laugh once. I mean, maybe in the later days, but there was never a time he wasn't smiling. Just as Mrs. Dobson said earlier in the video, there wasn't a day that he didn't smile. And so that was always funny. And after this, I'll include some of the best of Gramps, because credit to my sister, she filmed a couple shorts of that. As a grandfather, aside from the humor, he's just a wonderful human being. There weren't really times when he hollered at us. Well, except for the time so he got his false teeth. It was like second or third grade I was in. But he got his false teeth, and me being the curious George that I still am, I decided to take them out of the case while he went in, and I think he'd forgotten something or whatever, so he left us in the car. Yeah, I messed with his false teeth, so I got quite the talking to for that one. But other than that, we joked about it for years after that. So he was just a wonderful human being. To us, there was nothing he couldn't do. There was nothing he was perfect in our eyes. We were just attached to him. And as time went on, that attachment grew even bigger. And the day that he passed away, it was crushing for all of us. My mother told me that it crushed her. I think all of us would say the same thing. We were all just crushed. My grandmother, devastated. You're with someone for over 60, just under 70 years. That's going to devastate you. And, but there's not enough that I can say to describe my grandfather. There's not really anything any of us can say that can do it justice. In the making of this film, there just hasn't been enough justice done. And to me, that sucks because I absolutely love my grandfather, and I wish I could do his story so much more proud. But the truth of it is, it's tough to cram everything into a video like this. So those are my memories of my grandfather. You know, just a wonderful guy. I miss him to death every single day, and he was the guy that got me into history. So that right there's explanatory of why I'm where I'm at today, career-wise. And so for my part, showing my face, that's all I've really got to say. But well, here's some of the best of Gramps.
By the way, miles, you know?
My actual email one?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to your email. Wow.
You show me.
He's my friend. What you don't put up with to have a grandfather. The automatic flushers trying to get up off of and they go. Hey, it's good to see you guys. See you.
Bye, Grandpa. Love you.
The life of Jack Denhoff ended on this earth on March 9th, 2021. And even though he's gone, there's no doubt that he's still up on that hill looking after us in the form of this red cardinal. And for my family, our friends, and everyone else who had a part in this project, thank you. We love you, Gramps.